Hey everyone, it's Sarah Wood, and I wanted to make a quick video on why pivot tables are not intimidating and some of the quick kind of getting started with pivot tables, just to kind of push people into trying it. Because I've recently met a lot of people who said that they started using pivot tables, but then they were intimidated by some of the value settings, and they had some of like the really common problems with getting a pivot table set up. So I just kind of wanted to work through some of those and encourage you to spend the time on the front end learning them. It's literally the tool I use every day. I probably make 100 to 200 pivot tables a day, but it takes me like 10 seconds because I have the raw data already. So I'm gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna make a pivot table so you can see, but I wanted you to notice a few things about the data first. It's a cute little data set. It's about animals. We're gonna pretend that this is a data set from an animal rescue, just to kind of go through. The age is in weeks. There's adoption fees, vet costs. I put a cuteness level in there just for fun. Pet type, and then record number. Now I've intentionally left some of these blank so that I can show you where things kind of go wrong with pivot tables. And I've added a column where every record has something, where I know every record has something in that row for that column. And I'll explain why I did that in a minute. So to get to a pivot table, click anywhere in your data, any one field, and go up to Insert and click Pivot Table. Now normally I would leave it to the default and add my pivot table to a new worksheet, which looks like this, but I don't want to do that for this video. I want you to be able to see the data and the pivot table at the same time. So instead, I'm going to click New Worksheet, and I'm going to add it right here and click OK. And I'm going to make these a little bigger. It's because I was deleting some stuff before this video. So this is what it looks like raw. On the right side, there's a pivot table field list that gives you all of the columns. So all of the names of the columns are right here. They're in the order that these columns appear. You can change that to alphabetical order. I do that for really big data sets. If you want to change that to alphabetical order, right click anywhere in this box, choose pivot table options, go to display, and then you can sort them A to Z. Now I'm going to leave it just this way, but I'll show you what it looks like. So now we're sorted A to Z, and then the fields show up that way. I'm going to undo that. And then we have these 4 boxes are how you interact with the pivot table. I'm going to make a pivot table real quick, and then I'm going to explain why I've made some choices. So I'm going to grab a field for record and drop it into values. I chose record because it's that one column where everything has a value. Now right away, I know that we don't have 210 records. We only have 20. But notice it's saying sum of record. For some pivot tables, the sum function is what you want. But for most of the time, if you're counting, like I want to know how many puppies, instead of having to count puppies, I want the pivot table to count for me. In order to change that, there is a drop down, and then you choose value field settings, and then we're going to choose count. Now there's average here as well. I'll do that at the very end, but there are several other choices. Typically you can get away with sum, count, and then average. I rarely use average, but I know some people like to use it. So now that we've changed it, there's 20. And let's see, I'm going to grab pet type and drop it into column labels, and I'm going to grab age and drop it into row labels. So the great thing about pivot tables is that it's literally drag and drop using. When I first was running through this video really quickly, I had pet type on row and age on columns, but I didn't like how that looked. So the great thing is that literally in like a second, I can change it back into something that just looks better and is easier to interact with. If I were going to work with this a lot and I needed to remember what's going on, I would change the titles, which you just click on there. We'll go pet records, and then we'll change this to pet type. So now we've got some nice labels that way. The grand totals, this is going across. This is counting the number. There's those 3 bunnies. And then this column is counting the number of animals that age. So like for 14 weeks, we know that there's 5 animals. And then this box right here is counting the total records. So we know there's 20. So that's a pivot table very quickly. If we had chosen not to grab the record field, if we chose to grab, let's say, vet cost, and we're counting it, now it's saying only 13 records. That's because it has blanks in it. So the first thing that I do with any data set is if it doesn't have a column where I can count on it always being completed, I will add a column in. So if you need to do that, I'm going to insert a column here to give us a little space. We'll go record number. And then if it doesn't matter what the actual value is, if all you care about is that there's something in that column, I typically do that. I went through that really quickly. So you can add like 1, 2, 3. I highlighted them, hovered over the bottom right, and then just double clicked, and it will autofill all the way down. So I don't actually need that column because I already have it, but if you need to, that's how you do it. Okay, so let's say we want to know the actual cost of vets, and what we can do is change the value field setting to sum. And while we're at it, we'll change the number format, go to currency, no decimal places. And now this is an option where it would make sense to put the vet cost in the actual values. Because if we want to know how much the vet is for all of the animals, then we can pull that down. So that's an example there. Let's say we are curious about the possible adoption fees that are going to come in from the animals we currently have. We can get rid of vet costs and we can add adoption fee. And it's going to default to sum of adoption. And we're going to, again, change that to currency. Go hit pause as we go through the video if there's like a step that I'm going through kind of quickly. My recording software is a little short, so I'm trying to make the video pretty short. So now we have a pivot table that's telling us exactly what we're going to expect. So if our bunnies are adopted, we can see $300. If our puppies are adopted, we can see $2,300. If everything is adopted, if we have like a clear the cages shelter day, we can see almost $3,000. So that's your pivot table. And then again, if we wanted to move back to, let's grab record instead. And again, it's summing them. We don't want that to do. Change it to value. And we'll do count. And let's say instead of weeks, we are interested in adoption fees. So these are the adoption fees by animal. We've got our bunnies. Adoption fees are always set at $3. Our ducklings are like a little all over the place. And then puppies are all over the place depending on their age or their breed perhaps. So $250 is our, for this record, so we'll say $250 is our most common adoption fee for a puppy, which is a pretty good deal if you adopt because they're probably vetted and spayed and neutered at the same time. So that's why I've had the cost down so much. Okay, so we're looking at those. Let's say we are interested in their cuteness level. And I added cuteness level in here to show you averages. So we've got cuteness level, and instead of age now, it will leave that there. So we'll say cuteness. So cuteness, I love puppies the most, so I put puppies at all straight 10. But we can get rid of that and put cuteness here and do average. So we'll do an average cuteness level, but bunnies are 8.3 and ducklings are 6.7 or 7.7, and then puppies are 10, like a straight 10. So that's averaging there. Instead of it being the record, to kind of show you again, here I'll go back through. I grabbed cuteness level and put it in a value. Drop this down, value settings, and then I chose average. I can change that number format to no decimal places, and then we'll do okay, okay. So the average for bunnies is 8, ducklings is 8, but puppies is a strong 10. That is your pivot tables in kind of a nutshell. The best thing that I can tell you to do is just to play with them, practice with them. The more comfortable you get, the faster you'll be able to use them. But those are some common errors. If you click off of it, you lose your field list too. Just click anywhere back in. And then kind of the last thing to show you is if you double click a value, it will take you to a new worksheet. Just go back to your tab and you're done. So that's pivot tables in a nutshell with cute little animals.